Hey, this is Gabe. Happy New Year. Welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be making a new pen for me. This is called Galactic Gala. And this is a really cool pen. I got the blank from Sean Mastrino. It has an ink view window and so forth, and using my two-piece dovetail clip that I've put in or I made in a previous video. But anyway, stay with me and we'll show you how I make this pen step by step. Galactic Gala blank I got from Sean Mastrino. This is an 11-inch long blank, 20 millimeters in diameter, and I'm going to cut it within the same length as this Cocobolo pen that we made. I seem to like this style pen right here. The dimensions I think are really good, the proportions. The cap is 2 7/8 inch long, and the body from the cap down to the end is about 3 inches, and with a 7/8 inch section. So we're going to be doing along the same lines. I'm going to be incorporating a cap band like you see here, but in previous videos I am going to be putting an ink view window in here, and then I'm going to be using the same brass accents and this style of clip. So I'll mark this. I've got a couple of marks right here already going. This is for the finial right here on top, and this is a little bit longer because when this is unscrews, it threads into the cap right there, about 1/4 inch deep. So that's why that is a little bit longer on that mark. I want this cap about 3 1/4 inches so that when I cut it, I have enough meat on that cap to trim it down and square it up. And then the body I'll cut 3 5/8 inch long, and then that'll leave me some room for my sections. And then I will turn a ink view window and then glue in the middle of that body. I'll link a video in the description of how I make the ink view window. So starting with the finial, I cut off a piece right here. I'm just going to flush up those ends and then put a dimple on the end of that. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be turning this end piece right here, and you can see how that's threaded and it's hollow on the inside. This is for the other part of the cap right here. So to measure that tenon, I just took my calipers, measured that like that. I'm just going to transfer that same cut over here. In my floating die holder, I have an M10 by 0.75 die to cut those threads. I do want to put a drop of mineral oil on that to lubricate that. Take my thin parting tool and I just want to make that back end where it's flush. Now I have a 9 by 30 inch drill bit that I'm going to drill a hole in like this. That is just for the nib on the fountain pen, so that if this cap goes on, that it's hollow on the inside right there, so that that nib, for whatever reason, if I do something wrong, that will end up on the inside and not get crushed when I put the cap on. And I've got a mark right there for that. Okay, this is the cap finial that is done now, so we can put that aside. So now we need to make the cap body, except it's going to be shorter than this. Got a mark right here. So this is going to be the part right here that we need for the cap. So I need to drill an 11/32 inch hole right here and then thread that to drop in there. So now I'm going to use the M10 by 075 tap. That works exactly with the die. So we're going to put this in, thread that right there. Now I'm going to use a 1/2 inch router bit, and I've got a little bit of a mark right there. It's kind of hard to see, but I can see it. I'm going in 2 millimeters. So we're going to be using a 14 millimeter triple start tap for this next process. To speed things up a little bit, I had a 1 inch plug, which you see right here. I pre-drilled that out, and then I've got a little line right here, and I have that on my number 1 jaw, so that I know that when I put that on there, that's going to be perfectly round the way that hole is drilled. So again, let's add some fluid to that. Now I want to put a hose clamp on that and then re-thread that with the die or the tap. That just makes it bite into those threads a little bit deeper so that it goes on better. The cap. There, you can see the threads in there. Now, oops, I forgot to let's put that back in there on number 1. That's number 1. There's that mark. Need to chamfer that inside. So why did I do that? I need to step this down so it can slide inside the blank. So like what we did over here, we're going to end up drilling this out, and then this is going to get inserted inside here. The reason I'm doing this is so I can add that brass accent. And I'm going to be using a 19/32 drill bit to drill this out, so that'll get sleeved on there. So that is what that is going to be turned down to right there. There, you can see what that looks like. Gotta remove this. And then this will get drilled out to insert that right there. Oh, right where that line is, so that's perfect. And that deep. Perfect. So now I need a hole to drill to this second mark here. I need to drill a 7/8" hole, but first I need to finish drilling this out right here, which is a 9/32. So now I need to finish drilling up to this first line, which is a 19/32, excuse me, 33/64. And that goes there like that. So what I want to do is I want to remove that because I don't want to mess up those threads. And There, that's perfect. And then now a 3/8. I'm going to the second line, which is already marked right here on my drill bit. Okay, so now those are our three components for the cap. This is the threaded end right there for the finial with the dimple, right? That is the piece right here. And then I'm going to put brass in the middle. Okay, so now I just want to glue this up. I'm going to put some Gorilla CA glue, which is like a thick or medium viscosity glue on that. This is some brass. Doesn't want to go on there. I'll have to force it on. There. Now I put some mineral oil on the end here to keep this from sticking. I want to glue this brass to this right here, but I don't want it to stick to that. So I'm only going to put this on one side. There, now, that's why I got that dimpled on the end. So I got that under tension. Let's rotate that. Now that will straighten itself out. And I'll lock that in place. And then when I come back, that'll be dry, and then we can turn that down. All right, now I'm going to switch gears on the body. So I'm using an old pen design right here with an ink view window, and you can see that's about 1/4 of an inch. So we got 3/8 of an inch right here for the threads, 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch for the ink view window, and then the body here I'm going to leave a little bit long, and then I will come back and then modify this to length after the fact. I'd rather have it long than too short. So I've got this marked right here. This is the 3/8 of an inch for the threads. This is that 1/4 inch right here. I'm going to cut this here in the middle, and then I'm going to cut this off over here on this side. And then we'll be right back after I make those cuts. So I just made the initial cut here. I didn't cut this part off right here yet. I want to be able to turn this down and then do the threads first, and then I'll cut that piece off, and then we'll go from there. So I have my caliper set to the diameter of my triple start threads like that right there. that's turned down to 14 millimeters. A little mineral oil. So I'm locking this right here, but not the whole unit itself. I want this to float back and forth. Okay, still binding a little bit. I have to crimp this down a little bit. So what I have is my triple start thread. This is an end piece like this that I cut a little kerf in. This goes on here. Sometimes easier said than done. Hose clamp. Just bump the tripod. We'll go ahead and re-tap that. But this time, this is under pressure, so it's holding it together. And before, what was happening is it was cutting, and as this rotated around this would expand a little bit. So it's not getting as tight of a cut as I would have liked. But that happens. Like that. So that cut those threads a little bit deeper. Now this is stuff I figured out on my own over the years. Much better. Okay, so now I'm going to cut that off right there in the middle. So before I take this piece out here, I want to drill the hole that I need for this to go in here. This is, the outside diameter is 27/64. So we're going to make a hole 27/64 deep. And I've got a little mark right there. And then I'm going to finish drilling that out with an 11/32 all the way through. In case you're wondering why I chose 11/32, 11/32 is what I always use, and that is the same hole that is in there, like that. The 27/64 is also the same height or the same dimension of our brass, which is going to go in there like that, and that's going to go in the middle on both sides. So that is that part right there. We'll set this aside. We'll come back to that. Now this piece here, I am just going to thread on to this. And by the time I put my brass in there, that's perfect. Okay, so I trimmed about ½ inch off of this right here on this end, and I just trimmed the brass down after that glue up. So that's starting to look pretty good. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to put the section in, and every time I ink it up, I don't want to have to unscrew the section. So once this is in place, I have the ink view window here so I can see what direction I'm rotating that. And then this right here is going to have a removable cap. So all I have to do is unscrew the tailstock rather than unscrew the section. I know it's still unscrewing one side or the other, but this way I think it's just kind of cool. So you can see that in there right there, moving back and forth. You can see how that would look on the inside once you unscrew that. And this way you'll probably still get ink on your hands, but if you're wearing gloves and whatnot. But anyway, it's I think it's just a cool little feature, something I've always wanted to do. So the next thing I'll have to do now is tap that right there. So I have to unscrew this. And then you can see what that looks like right there, like that. So I wanted to leave enough of that sticking out so that I can get fingers on that comfortably. So that now going back to the 10 by 075 die. Now I need a 1/4 inch hole. That is that drill bit right there. And then that is going to get recessed 3/16 of an inch like that to that line right there. So that is going to get drilled to there. So I cut a small tenon right there, as you can see. Then I drilled a hole in some brass, and then I'm just going to glue this brass on there like that. Again, I'm just using this I got at the home center. And then the tenon piece, I put mineral oil on that so this won't stick if there's any glue squeeze out. Okay, as you can see, I turned the brass down so it's even with the body, but we had an issue with this part right here. You can see that this is black versus this color. So when I was turning the brass down on this side right here, this got so hot because this was really thin, and you can see that wall. So it actually melted and broke. So I had to drill this out on both sides, and I tapped this out just like I did this side over here, drilled and tapped this side out. And then I threaded in some ebonite and then glued that in there. That I've never had melt on me, so that's how I overcame that right there. And then being that that's going to be hidden, that will not be seen. So this is what the body looks like so far. And this is our cap. Not too much to look at the moment, but I think with this brass, or with the brass accents and this bronze color here throughout the blank, that should really accent that, especially with the clip. So anyway, I'm just going to turn one of these down on camera, and then the other one I'll do off camera, but it's the same process. So I'm just going to do the body here. Turning is kind of like watching paint dry. Remember, we dimpled that back side right there, so that goes on there like that. So I'm going back to this pen, and then I'm using the same measurements. This is 15.5, and this is 14.5 millimeters in diameter. So that's what I'm going to be basing that on. And then with a clip like this, that should look really, really stellar. So anyway, we'll get to that, and then we'll come back. We're just going to set this right here, like I said. This is about 15.5, 16. And then we'll go 14.5 down here. You can see what that looks like. That looks pretty cool. That's enough on there that I can come back and sand that, and I still have to cut that off to length. And that got really tight on there. I just bought these section pliers, so when the sections get really tight on there, it's almost impossible to take off. So there we go. I bought these on eBay. They were like 30 bucks. And you can see how that is going to come off on the end. And you can see what that looks like. You can see the plunger move back and forth so you know which way to spin it. So the hole itself is drilled down to about that deep right there. And you can see it needs to be deep to accommodate that. That's a 1/4 inch hole on the inside. Okay, now that that we have the section in, that looks really good. The tail is on, and I still have a little bit of that to trim off. We can unscrew that. So now when I fill this with ink, I just have to unscrew this. I know I'm still unscrewing something. I don't have to unscrew the section and then worry about getting more ink on my hands. I'm thinking this might be a little bit more efficient, but I'm not sure. You can't make that little tenon very long, because on the inside where this hits, this little collar, the chrome piece, that if it's too long, this will hit that right there. So when that goes in, make sure that that doesn't hit it. Otherwise, this won't go on all the way, or this won't go in all the way. So make sure if you do something like this, that tenon's not too long. So now you can see how that body looks. I think that's going to look really killer together, especially when that's wet sanded. So we'll come back after I finish the cap. All right, we are back, obviously. This is what that pen body looks like. This is the cap. And that looks really good. And then, like I said, when we get the clip on here, that will really dress all that up together. And I am using a Jowo number 6. That is a fine Rosetta nib. And that is a Schmidt refill. So the next thing we'll do is, I will just wet sand the cap on camera so you can see that process after I get all this mess cleaned up. All right, now we're set up to do the wet sanding here. This one is we're going to start out with the wet polishing pads, 1500 grit, 1800 grit, 2400 grit, 3200 grit, 3600 grit, 4000 grit, 6000 grit, 8000 grit, and lastly 12,000 grit. But before I start using these, I like to go through 3 different grits of just regular sandpaper. This is 220, 320, and then 400. Even though this is regular sandpaper, it still works like wet, dry sandpaper. Doesn't fall apart when you soak it in water. $400. The reason I like using this is to get rid of any deep scratches from the rough sanding of 220 when it was dry. So I want to go along the vertical axis of the pen blank so I can get rid of any scratches that are going this way, so I can just sort of erase those before we go into the wet dry sanding pads. I don't want to put too much downward pressure because the only thing that's holding is right here where it's screwed in. That's only a couple millimeters thick of plastic or the acrylic. Okay, so now we'll just go ahead and start with 1500 grit. $1,800 grit. $2,400 grit. And then periodically I like to go again with the grain, even though there's no actual grain here, but just to change the direction of the sanding pattern, removing any scratches. This is 3,200. 3,600. $4,000. You can really see that starting to look really, really amazing. And you can see why I was really drawn to this particular blank.
This is 6,000.
$12,000. Next thing we have to do is fit the clip on here, but you can see what that looks like with the ink view window. I still need to wash the inside of it out. When I unscrew that, you can see what that looks like with that gold tone steel nib that really complements the brass. I am really looking forward to inking this one up. All right, so this is the clip I'm going to use. And this is why we cut that recess here for a ½ inch for that to fit inside there like that. It's kind of hard to tell, but I've got a mark right here and a mark right here. There, you can see that now. And that is for both sides there, like that. So that's how I have that marked using a fine Sharpie. So this I'm putting in here and using my soft jaws. I'm using this little fine tooth back saw or gent saw. I'm going to cut one side first, leaving that ink mark. And then I'm going to cut a little bit thinner on the other side. Cut in on an angle. Chip that out. Both ways. Taking a metal file. And I'm just going to push in that direction and just level that out. Now I think that's way too thin still. But if I push one side in, I go back, remark, I could see that I've got a pretty decent amount of meat on there left, so we'll just cut that a little bit. Oh, you know what? I'll just use the file instead. I'm going to apply some pressure this way with the file to open that up. And it looks like I'm in pretty good. So I just need to flush this out on the bottom and then flush that top a little bit better. And then we're there. Okay, after getting the pen all cleaned up, you can see how good this looks. And that's really cool looking. So to get to the section, all I have to do is unscrew this, or to ink it rather. And then there it is. You can see turning that back and forth. You can keep your fingers out. I know you're going to unscrew one end or the other, but I think this is still pretty cool. It's a great concept for doing things a little differently. So anyway, you know what to do. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like the blank, I will leave a link in the description of the gentleman that made it, Sean Mastrino. It's a beautiful blank. So needless to say, I had him special make this one just for me. This one is not for sale, as you can see why. But if you do want to have a pen made that's similar, let me know and we can work something out. You can visit my website at exoticwoodpen.com, leave me a message, and we will work something out, or try out my design choices page on my website and submit a design for me, and we'll work it all out. Have a good day. Hey, this is Gabriel Castro. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. You can click on the link right here and subscribe. You can watch a video series right here, or the latest video right here. Hey, this is Gabriel Castro. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel. You can click on the link right here and subscribe. You can watch a video series right here, or the latest video right here.